Hello everybody, welcome back to Mason Zero ASMR. My name is Mason, and today I have an interesting video for you. My last video about computers seemed to do pretty well, showing you guys the computer that I purchased a while ago, and now I have something more interesting, which is showing you guys a computer that I built. This computer that's sitting right here is not a replacement for the computer that I purchased for myself a while ago. It is, in fact, just a budget PC project that I wanted to do. I have been doing a lot of research and video watching and article reading about computers and PC building for a little while now, and I wanted to give it a try for myself. And I succeeded. This is an awesome little computer, and including Windows, it cost me $540. I could have gone more budget, but I decided to splurge in a couple areas just to make something still usable. My original goal was actually to convert an old Dell pre-built that I had lying around, but I ran into some issues, namely the fact that the motherboard would not accept a graphics card. I just couldn't get it to work. So I ended up doing everything from scratch. So all of the parts in here are new. Nothing is used. If you're planning to build your own budget PC, then going used on certain parts, such as the graphics card, can be very good, and I would highly suggest that. In my case, I got the graphics card on sale. That was the first thing that I purchased. So anyways, I'm going to start getting into this and turn the case a bit. So, here's the case. You can see a bit more of it. It is from DIY PC. I believe it only cost $27. I believe it was on sale. And it's a nice case. It's moderately attractive as far as cases go, and it's a micro ATX style, so it's smaller than a normal tower computer, but a lot of computers these days are this size, and it really is a perfect size. So on the top, there's a power button here. There's also two USB 2, a USB 3, microphone and headphone jack, and a reset button, as well as a couple power indicator lights. In the front, there's a fan here. And then on the back, well, of course on the side, there's this tempered glass window, or actually I think it might be acrylic or plastic or something, but either way, there's a window. Not the whole pane. I would have preferred it to have the whole pane. And on the back, we have the I/O and stuff like that. So we have another fan in the rear. That is that is also an orange LED fan. And we have the motherboard I/O that has USB 2, USB 3. We have 4 USB 3 ports, a USB 3.1, a USB Type-C. No lightning though. HDMI, VGA, and then DVI, and then Ethernet, of course, and then the standard 5.1 audio. And here you can see the I/O for our graphics card, which has, actually, I have a couple of these things still in. So yeah, we have 3 DisplayPort, 1 HDMI, and interestingly, a DVI. And then down here, we have the power supply and the plug. So that is the exterior of this PC case, which, like I said, was $27. Which I have my PCPartPicker.com list in front of me, and I'll be sure to link that in the description. So the case was the DIY PC F20 Micro ATX case, which does come in several colors, including pink, I believe, but I liked the orange, and I think it looks pretty cool. So now, obviously, what you guys care about is the inside. I'm going to do the boring side first. So it has these thumb screws here on the back that can be undone with a little effort. So very easy to access the internals of this computer. So here's the boring side. See the underside of the motherboard here, and then cables coming from the power supply routing through here. So no cable grommets, as they're called, just some holes. I have it relatively well cable managed back here with some zip ties, and yeah, nothing too interesting back here. I do like how many holes they do have, so I was able to cable manage rather effectively. So, and of course this is a bit hollow in here, this bump out. It's very useful, especially right here. These cables kind of come out a lot. There's also a grate on the top for air. I'm not actually sure if it's intaking or outputting. I'm not sure, because there is one fan in, one fan out, so I'm not quite positive. So now I'll open up the interesting side, the side that has all the stuff and hardware in it. At the end of this video, I'm going to try to do some benchmarks for you. Okay, so we have the side panel. So the parts we have in here are the motherboard, the CPU and the CPU cooler, the graphics card, the power supply, the solid state drive, and the hard drive. The hard drive is not included in the total cost because I just had it lying around, and I actually just put it in the other day, even though I've had this built for a couple weeks now. It's not a necessary component, but I wasn't using it, and it's only 500 gigabytes, so I figured that would add a little something to this build. So starting with the motherboard, the thing that this computer is built around, I want to say that I splurged a bit. There were some, probably some cheaper options, but I wanted to get a good one and make sure that I future-proofed. That being said, this is the ASRock B450M Pro 4 Micro ATX motherboard. Micro ATX being the case size, so of course that has to match. So as you may be able to tell from the motherboard technology and the giant logos on this cooler, this is an AMD system rather than Intel. which I am a big fan of Intel chips, and I would normally build with Intel, but cannot deny that they are more expensive than AMD. So I opted for the Ryzen 3 2200G CPU from AMD, which is a lot of bang for your buck. It was $100, which is quite low considering the new Intel chips are 300 plus. It is a 4-core, 3.5 gigahertz processor, unlocked, which means you can overclock it. So that's quite a lot. Comparing that to my CPU in my main computer, it's not a whole lot off. That's also a quad core, and it's 4.0 gigahertz base clock, overclockable to 4.52, something like that. I'm not sure. So it's really a difference of 0.5 gigahertz in terms of clock speed, and that costs $300. So this is a nice processor for the price. So going AMD definitely made it cheaper, and so far in testing and stuff, it's worked very well. I really can't complain for $100. And it comes with this cooler, which is relatively quiet. It's called the Wraith cooler, and it is advertised as being pretty quiet. I have to say that it is. It came with thermal paste pre-applied, which I appreciated. One less little detail that I had to buy. Same with the motherboard. Also was more than I expected. It came with a lot of extra screws, more than I needed. A lot of things like that. Standoffs. It came with a lot of things. Going back to the motherboard, I should say it was $70, and it also had a lot of bang for the buck. I was excited to see that it has not one, but two M.2 solid-state drive slots. One of them is Ultra M.2, which I believe requires a certain kind of solid-state drive, maybe the NVMe. I'm not quite sure. Either way, the standard solid-state drive that I ended up buying, I had to put it in the normal M.2 slot instead of the Ultra one, but that's fine. It has 4 slots for RAM, and that's awesome because that means it's more expandable. I currently just have 2 sticks of RAM in there, as you can probably see, but it's nice to know that expanding it would be pretty easy. I'll talk more about the RAM later. There's also 2 PCIe slots for graphics cards, although this system will not have 2 graphics cards because the case does not fit it, and the power supply is not nearly high enough for that. But it does have the 2 slots. In the back, there's 4 sort of I/O areas for graphics cards, and unfortunately, this card takes up the 2 middle slots. So I cannot run these together, or cannot run 2 graphics cards together. I also have no idea how AMD's Crossfire technology works and differs from NVIDIA's SLI. With SLI, normally right here there would be a little chip to put the bridge on, but that does not exist on here, so I don't really know how Crossfire works anyways. Moving on, the motherboard also has a USB 3. The header is right here, this giant plug. And of course we do have the USB 3 port up here that connects to. It has 4 SATA connections, so we can put 4 hard drives. This case, of course, only supports 2 regular hard drives. And I believe up here is a SSD bay right above that, which I actually did not notice before, but that is definitely a bay for an SSD. And you could probably fit other ones on the back, or you can get creative. So moving on to the next thing, I touched on RAM, so I guess I'll talk about that. There we have 8 gigs of RAM total. It's 2 sticks of 2666 megahertz RAM, which is the highest speed supported by the 2200G processor. And yeah, I obviously would have preferred 16 gigs of RAM, but since this was a budget build and I won't be using it that much, I decided just to go for 8 to save some costs. This is Kingston HyperX Fury, 2 4GB sticks, which cost $58. If I wanted to go down a few dollars to like $50 or $52, there were other brands that were selling them for cheaper, but I decided to go with the more reliable brand, as well as the fact that these RAM sticks have the casing around them. In fact, since those things come out pretty easily, I will take that out. Now the one downside about this case in terms of RAM is that I believe, yeah, there's only the sort of pegs that keep the RAM in. There's only one of them. So here we have HyperX Fury RAM, DDR4 of course. There's where it plugs in, and then you can see we have this plastic casing around it. And then yeah, RAM is very easy to install and uninstall. So I'll just go ahead and pop that right back in. Until you hear the click on both sides. Very satisfying. And boom, we're done. So next, let's talk about the power supply. It's only 400 watts, which is relatively low. However, I figured that's all that I needed, considering this is a relatively power light system. The graphics card does say that it needs a 450 watt power supply, but first of all, I didn't see that on the box until after I'd purchased this power supply, and I also, everything else is a low enough power draw, and I did some additional research on this graphics card and sort of power draw of it and more powerful ones, and I feel confident that it should be fine. And after testing, I haven't had any power issues. The system hasn't just turned off mid-game, so I don't have any worries about that. I guess that's all there is there. It came with a lot of wires, connectors, everything that I needed. A ton of headers for case fans, a ton of SATA cables for hard drives and stuff. Really had a lot. Also had 2 power connectors for graphics cards, so it does support 2 graphics cards, although with 400 watts I wouldn't feel good about putting 2 modern graphics cards in here, but it does have the support for it, at least in terms of the hardware. The hard drive, as I said, is just a 500 gigabyte hard drive that I had lying around. It's nothing to speak of. The solid state drive is a Western Digital 500 gigabyte M.2 SSD. So I kind of went big with this one with 500 gigabytes. That's a pretty big solid state drive, which is why it was $73. But I figured that I wasn't going to be putting much on this computer, so why not make the entire thing solid state? I had no intentions of putting this extra hard drive in there until I realized I had it lying around. Yeah, so that just sits in the M.2 slot, and EOS is on there, so it boots up insanely fast and opens games and programs and stuff smoothly. I'm just installing everything on there for now, since there's only going to be a few games on here at any given time. So really, it's that's the system. The power supply was $30, by the way. And then for the graphics card, the most interesting part, I'm actually going to take this out for you. So the graphics card in this case is a RX 570 from AS Rock. It's a 4 gigabyte graphics card, and the RX 570 is a very solid card. What I see it described as often is you kind of get Xbox level graphics with it, so it's the kind of performance and quality that you'd expect to see from a console, which compared to the high-end PC settings would probably be medium to high medium, maybe getting into the highs a little bit depending on the game. So this is solid for 1080p gaming. You will have no problems running popular games. For example, Fortnite runs perfectly at 60 frames per second at medium settings. A few things different, but mostly medium, and that's not bad. The graphics card was $150. I got it on sale, and nowadays, a few months later, you can get them for $100, especially used, and occasionally on sale. So if I would have waited a little longer, could have saved a few bucks, but that's okay. I am going to take this out to show you guys. So first of all, unplug the power, and then unscrew this panel on the back. And then we just have to depress this little thing in here, and then the graphics card should come out. To undo these screws, I use this screw. There we go. Easy as that. So, on the one end, it's not very attractive. Top, something in the future could be getting a back plate for this, some sort of custom design on it. That'd be cool. On this side, this little radiator thing, and then the actual cool side. This has all the fans and the cool design and all that stuff. So it's a relatively attractive looking graphics card, and a reasonably powerful one, powerful enough for our needs, and of course very easy to install. Here's our solid state drive, by the way. So now let's put this back in. Much like the RAM, that just kind of clicks into place there, and then we just have to reconnect it to where it needs to be held in. So now that we've got it all put back together, let's go see how it runs and show some benchmarks. All right, welcome to the office where we're going to be testing the PC. I've got my triple monitor set up here, but we're only going to be using our main display here, which is a monitor from MSI. It's a 1080p monitor, 144 hertz refresh rate, 1 millisecond response time, and it is curved. So this is my gaming monitor, of course. So we're going to be trying it on there. So let's go ahead and start the power here. And we'll be able to see the lights light up there. The two orange fans. All the internal fans and things will start whirring. And we should see Windows booting in just a moment once all the hardware gets recognized. And there we go. There's Windows. I also have two keyboards and mice set up because this computer, or my main computer, is very cable managed and it's pretty much impossible to get my mouse and keyboard out. So here's our desktop with our Fortnite background. The other thing we're going to need actually is the Wi-Fi antenna. I'm so used to my main PC having built-in Wi-Fi, so I'll grab that real quick. Okay, we have Wi-Fi now. So now I'm going to be running some benchmarks. Alright, now that the computer's on, we're going to go ahead and run some benchmarks. We're going to start with the Unigine Heaven benchmark. We're going to go ahead and run that right now. So this benchmark tests most of the graphics card and things like that. You'll be able to see some statistics while it's running. And it'll give us a score at the end that will sort of rate our system here. So we're going to go into benchmark mode here. And it's going to tell us what's going on. So these are the settings we have. Our resolution is 1920 by 1080, anti-aliasing at 8x, image occlusion, volumetric shadows, refraction, all on. Quality is on high, tessellation is enabled, and I believe on high as well. So right now we're getting just above 60 frames per second. So let's go into the benchmark mode again, start that. And in the bottom right corner, you can see the current statistics, including average frame per second and minimum and maximum frames. Then up in the top right corner, you can see the current frames per second. So we're currently averaging in the first few scenes at just above 50. It's a little rough at first. In this scene, we're getting 90. Here's about 50 and 60. So you can see it fluctuates depending on the scene. But overall, we're getting roughly 60. You know, these settings might be a little higher than we would normally run a game at, but it's still a good benchmark to test. So here are our results for the Unigine Heaven benchmark. Our average frames per second was 59, so just under 60, which that would tell me in a game to ever so slightly lower the settings. We stuttered at some points and got to a minimum of 8.6 frames, but we were at 114 maximum, which, since this is a 144 Hz monitor, we would have been able to see that. Our score was 1486. Now, out of context, that doesn't really mean much. Compared to my main computer that has an i7 6700K processor and a GTX 1080 graphics card, this is less than half of what that computer got. So that is something to consider. That being said, it is a third of the price. So being less than half of the benchmark score is probably okay. Next, we're going to run user benchmark. This is a nice other general benchmarking tool that will give us some information about our computer and put some nice context into it. It'll compare it to other PCs that have been tested, millions have been tested, so we'll be able to see just how our individual components and our PC as a whole relates to other computers out there. So we have our results. So overall, this PC is performing above expectations. This means that of 100 PCs with exactly the same components, 32 performed better. So this is, our computer is running pretty solidly. They have sort of these different categories: gaming, desktop, and workstation. That gives you a percentage out of 61% for gaming, 69% for desktop, and 43% for workstation, meaning it's pretty great for gaming. So our AMD Ryzen 3 is performing solidly. It's sort of in this green great area where it's performing as expected. Our graphics card, the software doesn't seem to quite recognize the exact model, so I'm not sure if it's comparing it accurately, because it also kind of has it here in this yellow section, but it's still performing above expectations. For our drives, our SSD is performing perfectly, performing above expectations. Our regular hard drive is also above expectations, but not doing, as good as it could be, which is fair because it's pretty old. Our RAM is performing above expectations as well. So overall, pretty good. So those are our benchmarks for that. Overall, I'd say that it's a very solid computer according to this benchmark. Now for some Fortnite Battle Royale. Here are our graphics settings. We have these 4 things on high, these 2 things on medium, VSync on. And we have MSI Afterburner up in the top left corner, showing us our temperatures and statistics and things like that. So we're running at 60 frames per second, roughly, which is what we're capped at. This is the 20 versus 20 Team Rumble, by the way. So we're dipping into the 50s, but for the most part, staying at 60. Some settings might need to be changed depending on the consistency of that. Our graphics card currently, after just a moment of playing, is like 62 degrees Celsius, and it's like between 70 and 100% usage depending on when you look at it. Our CPU, all 4 cores appear to be in the 40s to 70s, so fair CPU usage there, but perfectly within its bounds. I'm going to go ahead and try to get into a fight here and see how the frame rate is in a battle. Yeah, so far so good. Solid 60 frames per second. We're using about half, or about 5/8 of our RAM. Using 5 gigabytes of RAM roughly. Alright, we got a pretty solid loadout. Let's go kill some people. So they would probably be in Retail Row. So let's see if we can find anyone. Okay, you can sort of jumping around, moving around. We're staying at 60 frames per second. Kind of in the wide open here, so that's not bad. CPU's doing great. I think I forgot to select the 4th core on there actually. But this is a quad core, so there should be another one on there. But the bottom CPU shows our overall usage, which is currently in the 40%, which is great. Our GPU still around 70. I'm not sure what our CPU temperature is. I don't think that was an option, but from core temp tests, I've seen it pretty stable. It idles at about 29 or 30, which is great. In terms of gameplay, I think I saw it go up to around 70, which is nothing really to complain about. That's a perfectly healthy range for it to be in, so I have no complaints there. The cooler does a good job. The case itself stays pretty cool. There's cool air running through the top. The air out back is warm, but not terrible. You know, I expected people to be here at Retail Row, but I don't see a single soul. Where'd they all go? Someone was over here. And we're playing with without sound, so at a bit of a disadvantage here, but obviously someone did come here at some point. And no one's killed anyone yet on any team. So that's interesting. Someone just came up here. Didn't even bother. I don't even know what they were doing. They just built a bunch of pyramids. Probably good. Alright, well, let's get out of here. And see what we can find. And this cow is just everywhere. Oh, there's someone. Oh, we're missing all our shots. There we go. I'm using a mouse I'm not familiar with. It's been a while. But our frame rate is solid. And there I go. That was absolutely awful. Let's go back there if possible. Oh yeah, look at that. We're right above Retail Row. We're just gonna drop in right on this guy, hopefully. Well, that didn't quite work out, did it? But hey, that's what this mode is all about. So far, I'm both kills on the enemy team. Are we gonna spawn in the same place? This is fascinating. We keep spawning in the exact same location. Okay, is anyone here this time? Yeah. Oh, wow. I should really stop coming here. This is exponentially harder with no audio. I love how I keep spawning at this exact point, though. This is so funny. And there we go. We got our revenge. Finally. Yeah, so far so good in terms of frames. So I think these are the ideal settings for Fortnite with this setup, which, I mean, the game looks pretty great, as you can tell. Nothing wrong with the performance here. Really nothing to complain about. I see that trap. Ooh. So tell me what you guys think, of course, of this build. And if what your computer build is, if it's anything like this. I personally love this thing that I've created. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, probably not going to use it for much, but boom, there's that guy again, Taser Master. We did not get retail rail again this time. Our frames dipped a little bit right there, but for the most part, I'd say this is relatively stable. Some settings could probably be turned down. If I was doing solo games, playing this competitively and stuff, I would probably turn a few of the settings down so that I have consistent 60 frames. I'm certainly not going to be running this at 144 frames per second, just because I know that that would not be very reliable. Who else can we kill? No one with this mouse. Normally I use a Razer Mamba Tournament Edition, and at the moment I'm using my Corsair mouse. Oh my god, I can't even hit this guy. What are we doing? Oh no! Well, I'm going to call it there. I'm going to leave that match. But I think you guys get the point. Overall temperatures and performance was good. You know, it's hard to complain about that. If we open up core temp, you can see that we're currently at 55 and dropping rapidly. That's coming down from that, and our CPU load instantly going down. Anyways, that's all the benchmarks I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this computer build, enjoyed this video. I had fun making it. I had fun making this computer to begin with. Let me know in the comments what your build is, what you game on, whether it's a PC or a console. And I will see you guys in the next video. This has been Mason Zero ASMR. Please like and subscribe if you like. Have a great night.